What's up, investing legends? Today we welcome Jeff Guberman to the program. Jeff's path into real estate started with small residential deals in New Jersey after a home he couldn't sell became his first rental. From there, he built deal by deal, eventually stumbling into student housing almost by accident through an opportunity near Florida State University that required vision, grit, and a willingness to bet on something others had overlooked. Today, Jeff leads ID Capital, where he focuses primarily on student housing acquisitions in secondary and tertiary markets, using a hands-on business plan-driven approach to create value in niches most investors still don't fully understand. We kick off today's episode with Jeff's entrepreneurial journey, the mindset that's kept him sharp across multiple businesses, and why he still feels like the next shoe could always drop. Later, we dive into why student housing stands apart from traditional multifamily, how Jeff underwrites deals with simplicity and discipline, and the levers he looks for to create outsized value in overlooked markets. And to wrap up, Jeff shares his outlook on student housing and commercial real estate in 2026, why he believes new development could be a major winner over the next cycle, and the importance of keeping investing simple and understandable. So if you're looking for a framework to think through niche real estate opportunities or active value creation and building conviction in sectors that others often overlook, this episode delivers perspective from someone who's been in the trenches for nearly 2 decades and is still finding ways to win. So without further ado, everyone, let's welcome to the show, Jeff Guberman.
Welcome to the Investing Secrets Podcast.
Jeff, welcome to the vault.
Thank you for having me.
Hey man, I'm excited to chat with you. I'm wondering, at what point in your career, what was the first time where you kind of looked up at what you had going on and you're like, I might be onto something here. Like this, I might have made it. Like, I think this is it. What was that moment for you?
I'm still waiting for that moment.
Oh, come on, man.
I'm telling you, this is my maybe 6th or 7th company. Some have done well, some have not done well. Yeah. But I don't think I've ever had that moment where I felt like it worked and I was done. I think I've always been waiting for, the next step is going to be where this fails. The next step is where it's going to drop off. The next step is where I'm going to step in something terrible. I'm always waiting for that next shoe to drop. And so I don't think I've ever had that moment that I felt like I made it or I was done or I'd achieved what I wanted to achieve.
Do you think that's a you thing or just like an entrepreneur's curse thing?
Probably a mixture of the two, but I think that I would imagine that the entrepreneurs that are sure that they've made it stop being entrepreneurs. Mm. You stop taking the risks. You stop, you stop being a little bit defensive, perhaps, or you just sell your business and you're like, all right, it's time. And nothing wrong with that. Mm. I'm looking forward to those days too.
You have to admit though, like you have done some pretty cool things. So I guess the question becomes, or I guess the better question, like the follow-up question that I want to ask is, what was that like first breakthrough moment for you when you were building, and what did that look like? And we'll start there because I have some follow-up questions.
So, the first company I started was a meeting and event planning company, planning big corporate events around the world, and started it, out of my apartment in New York City. And I was expecting to maybe do a couple $100,000 year one. Started the company in November of 2004. In February of 2004, an acquaintance reached out and asked me if I would take a look at a big event for IBM for her. And so, I fly out to Bermuda to meet with this team and meet the IBM folks. And my acquaintance, who I'd never actually met in person, I'd only been on one phone call with her, introduced me to them as her like long lost son. And she and I have worked together 1,000 times and, told this great story about how much work we had done together. And I sold them on our company to do IBM's top tier incentive events. And, the first event we did for them was a couple of $1 million in year one, literally weeks out. And I was sure that I had made it then because, this was like the event that everybody in my position would have wanted to plan. And then I realized as time went on, that when you're a small company and you've got so much customer concentration, you're handing the keys to your business to your clients. And you've got two choices. Either you triple your business overnight so you don't have that kind of concentration, or you fire your biggest client. Right? I didn't do either of those two things. But I remember that moment was probably one of the most exciting. But every step along the way, as I grew each business, there was fleeting moments of feeling like I'd gotten there. You know, the first time that I didn't have to be working in the business at all. I was just working on the business, and there was an operations team. And then I realized I wasn't even welcome working in the business. You know, they didn't want me there. That was really exciting. And so I think as I'm growing the next business, that's the piece that I'm excited to get back to, is where I have enough team members who are smarter than I am. And I can get thrown out of the day to day of the business.
That is, it's a rewarding feeling, because I was there with my previous business too. And, it is nice. It is a nice thing to have. Or a nice feeling when you surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. You're like, yeah, you figure it out now. And I'll just, I'll be the brains, the cheerleader here.
Yeah, that's it.
Go team, go.
I was on the phone yesterday with a guy that owns a very large real estate company that I would assume many of your listeners would have heard of. He's a multi-billionaire. He's in his probably mid-70s. He's been doing this a very long time, and just insanely brilliant guy, so sharp in his 70s. And we're on the phone, and the amount of granularity he knew about his business was shocking to me. And he grew it from scratch, everything he did on his own. And he's built a huge organization. But I was just amazed how, despite the fact that I'm sure he doesn't touch anyone property anymore, he still had so much grasp over the challenges that each property had, what was going on. And so even floating around at 100,000 feet, though, this guy knew his business, and that was really inspirational.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think to a certain degree, once you start to lose touch with some of those more minute details, I think that's when things can go off the rails, right? Yeah. Reminds me of the show, the show where the undercover boss show, where they kind of go in and, right. I'm like, I think a lot of those guys, they have no idea what's going on.
Absolutely.
Right? And then they go in and they're like, oh my God, what are we doing here?
I love that show. I'm just always shocked why every single CEO cries on camera. Like, are they instructed to do this? Because every single one of them cries.
That's funny, man. So let's talk Ivy Capital. You're obviously you've built a successful multifamily syndication group here, and I know that you guys do other asset classes, right? Aside from multi, or am I making that up in my head?
So we're mostly student housing. I would say we're 90% student housing. We've got a little bit of multifamily, and we've got a little bit of vacation rental or short-term rental stuff. But our focus right now is student housing in secondary and tertiary markets.
Yeah. Well, and when I say multi, I mean, obviously student housing in my head kind of falls in that category. I would say though, and the thing that I've noticed is, there's these subsectors of multifamily, call it, we've got obviously student housing, senior living, active adults is another cohort of, or another subsidiary of senior housing. You've got workforce housing, all these things. Yeah. My belief is that, these niches have popped up, they say the riches are in the niches, right? And, student housing, senior living, all of these little niches, tend to perform better, right? Or tend to be more profitable than just straightforward, down the center of the plate multifamily. A, is that true? And B, why do you think that is?
Let me start with the why, because I think, I think we all know people that do straight down the center multifamily and they make a ton of money. But for me, I really look for an opportunity that you can have a definable business plan with a lot of levers that you can pull. I find that straight multifamily, oftentimes you're just subject to what's happening on the economy, what jobs are being created in this market. And there's a very large world that has a million butterflies flying around that affect you. And I like student housing because there's way less butterflies. The school is growing or it's not growing. The students that attend there need a place to live or they don't need a place to live. They can afford rent or they can't afford rent. There's new supply. There's not new supply. And so it's a simpler world to be able to understand a good deal versus a bad deal. And there's less things that are going to, kind of come out of the skies to attack you because it's just a smaller ecosystem. But I also really love the fact that in student housing, we create community and you've got a cohort of people that want to be a part of something. And so if you can bring this group of 500, 1,000 students together and make them feel like they have a home, they want that. Whereas you moved into my apartment building, you might want to sit by the pool. You probably don't want to meet your neighbors. You don't care about the tree.
Right. That's interesting. So I actually heard two things there. The first is that student housing tends to be more insulated in terms of the volatility, so to speak, of the market and more predictable is what I'm hearing in terms of the market conditions because you're focused in one specific area. Makes sense to me. At the same time, it sounds like it's more the business plan can influence the success of the student housing as well. Or is more, it's more easily influenced by the business plan. So it sounds like two different things here, like almost like two, not contradicting thoughts, but it's like, it's more insulated. But in that insulation, there's more plasticity for us to do what we need to do.
It's easy to figure out what levers you have to pull. Whereas if I'm buying a large apartment building in the middle of a city, it's harder to figure out what levers there are to pull. Is it just that I put more money into advertising? Like it's just a simpler world in student housing to be able to say if I create more community events because that's what's needed here, or there's a hole in the market because it's not a huge market, I can find where the holes are. How am I going to fill that hole? How do I use hospitality as a way to bring these people in and help them have that customer experience that we want them to have? Just a simpler way to do these things.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. At what point, Jeff, did you decide? Because I don't know that anyone wakes up in the morning one day and says like, "Oh, I'm just gonna, be a student housing syndicator." So at what point were you like, "Hey, this is a niche that I think that interests me and that I think I could do really well in"?
So I started investing in real estate in 2007. I had a house in Jersey City that I couldn't sell. And so I turned it into a rental and I loved it. So then I bought a 3-family and then I bought a 4-family, all in New Jersey for a while. And I was the guy at midnight that was out there, unclogging toilets and, self-managing up to probably about a dozen properties, across, northern New Jersey. And when I decided to start looking for a bigger deal, and something that would allow me to start understanding what scaling was, because I just didn't know that part of the business at all. And, all I knew was the scattered site approach. I stumbled across a property in Tallahassee, Florida at FSU, completely by accident. It was something that you needed a little bit of vision. It had a bunch of hair on it and it'd been on the market for a little while and people didn't want it. And I said, well, I have a vision for this. This makes sense. And so I went in and I learned the student housing world in that property. And so it was completely opportunistic and completely by accident. And I loved it. If I happened to be in town when kids were moving in, I helped kids move in. And it was so much fun. And just seeing how excited they were. And I really enjoyed that tenant experience. And so when I started Ivy Capital and really decided to focus, it's what I knew and it's what I love. So that being said, opportunistically, I still do multifamily, because there's still opportunities we stumble across. But if you had to put a gun to my head and ask me where I love, it's the student.
Yeah, really interesting. And so almost by fate, right? Or as luck would have it, you fell into one of these student housing deals, and you haven't really looked back ever since.
Yeah. I honestly
was there ever
sorry to say, I honestly
go for it. Yeah.
Pete, I honestly believe that most of the best things that we do in our lives are accidents.
Yeah.
You know, if you think about how you planned your life out when you were 19 years old, I would be surprised if you've hit most of the touch points. Maybe like you seem like a pretty driven, guy, but I think most of the
it's taken, my life has taken so many, I mean, I have a vision, but it's like the path to get there is like, who knows, right?
Yeah.
Who knows?
You want the 200-foot yacht. You just don't know exactly the route to get there.
That's funny. Was there ever a point in time in this journey where you thought, man, I don't know about student housing anymore, or I don't know about this whole multifamily thing? Like, or did you ever hit that point in your journey where you almost gave up?
Not in this world. No. I mean, in previous businesses, I have had some really tough times. You know, I went into COVID owning a private equity backed live events company. And I owned at that time a travel company. And so two of the probably hardest hit industries in COVID. And those were hard to keep going through. And those were some really, really painful times. So far in the student house or in the real estate world, I haven't had that yet. I think my fears or my challenges in the student housing world right now is all of our properties are incredibly successful right now. We're doing very well, and I'm proud of that. But I also recognize that there's a measure of luck involved in that. And so the more deals that you do, the more likely you are to have the bad deal. We have not had a bad deal yet. Yeah. And so every deal that we do, there's some question, is this the one? There is going to be a bad deal coming. I haven't found it yet.
Yeah. Well, that being said, there are things that you can do internally to insulate yourself from that. So, I mean, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
What are the assumptions? What are the stress tests? What are the underwriting rules that you have for yourself to ensure to do as much as you can, right? To make sure that you're not getting yourself into a bad deal.
Yeah, it's so we do a lot of the basics with our underwriting, and we try and keep it really simple. So it's very easy for us to understand what's happening at the college. Colleges talk about what their long-term plans are. We can see what their historical growth is, and so we're looking for colleges that are growing. We're looking for markets that don't have a lot of new supply coming online, and right now, people are focusing on the bigger colleges. Everyone wants the Big Ten or something, everyone wants an SEC school or something that is a little bit flashier. And so we know that most of the colleges we look at, there's not a lot of new supply coming online. We look at our comps. And so if we can have a vision for a property and see that we are matching or beating one of our comp properties, it's real easy to understand what we're going to get. And so, because they're not huge markets. And so, a lot of it though comes down to going onto site and talking to the kids. What are they seeing? What are they feeling? What do they like about the property? What do they not like about the property? And so with just some simple conversations, we can really understand what's happening, and understand what our customers want. And we look at them as customers. We look at them, as our future customers. And so the more we talk to them, the more we're really able to understand what's happening. I've mentioned, we look for value add properties. And so we've got some great partners that we bring in to help us understand, how much CapEx is really needed. Because there's nothing worse than being surprised by a couple of $1 million of work that you didn't know about. Right. And so we've been very, very fortunate to have some great partners. that have kept us out of that mess. And so we just go in with that vision and really try and create something that our customers want.
When I think student housing, obviously, the long-term viability of student housing really relies on whether or not higher education in general is on an upwards trend or like an upward trajectory. And I don't know if I necessarily have a big opinion on this, but I do know that others have a big opinion on how higher education we're at a crossroads right now. There's a existential threat to how higher education is conducted, or the value of higher education, right? People looking at what's the price tag, what's the ROI, right, on my collegiate degree, and just seeing those numbers diminish, especially with, how easy it is now to make money online, and, kids, looking more for vocational work as opposed to, just a generalized degree. So, how does that tie into your projections? And obviously you can't underwrite or predict the future, so to speak. Right. But what are your 2 cents on all of this, and how does it impact your investment strategy, if at all?
Yeah. So I look at this with a couple of different lenses. So first, I do think that more people should be going to the trades. I don't think college is for everybody. And so, I think our country is starting to understand that a little bit better than we have for the last 20 years. So I don't think college is for everybody. And that's lens number 1. Lens number 2 is I have a 16 and an 18-year-old. My 18-year-old was just accepted into Villanova College for next year. My 16-year-old is just starting to understand what he wants to do or where he wants to go. And so we're driving around exploring. And one thing I've understood is that college fills a lot of different needs for that age of kid. It provides a sense of community and a sense of direction and a transition to a way to think. And I don't think that's ever going to be replaced. Could we have a world in 30 years where instead of, 70% of the kids going to college, it's 40%? That's possible. Right. There's always going to be that need for that transitionary phase of people not learning to be adults because they figure out how to be adults one way or another, but learning how to think in a different way. And I think that there's always going to be that group of parents that are going to want to provide that for their kids. If you were to ask me what it's going to look like in 10 years, I could give you what I believe is a pretty good guess. If you're going to ask me what it's going to look like in 30, 40, 50 years, I have no idea.
Right.
And, there's a lot of conversation about what AI is going to be doing. And, my kids are scared about what that means to their careers. But there's very little conversation for their generation right now about not going to college. It's about, what do I do in college to try and benefit most from this AI world? Yeah. Yeah. Well,
look, I got sent this article by several friends of mine, very intelligent people. It's a Substack article that's going absolutely viral. I don't know if you've read it, about, this very bearish doomsday outlook on, you read the article, right? Like the AI thing. Yep. I got about 75% of the way through it. And I'm like, first of all, this is fiction. This is not reality. Second of all, why am I going to pollute my brain with somebody else's? I mean, this is no better than watching the news, truthfully, right? It's just brain pollution. And I think that people severely underestimate, look, like when humans are backed into a corner, they figure it out. I think that we've proven that time and time again. I'm not so sure about this, but I think it's a good exercise to just kind of like think about what this means for society in general. But, I'm not really a doomsdayer when it comes to the AI stuff. But I do think that it's going to dramatically change, especially in education. I mean, my God, I think about, what if I had ChatGPT when I was in elementary school? I mean, this is just insane, right?
Well, for me, and maybe you were similar. I'm a bit older than you, but every math class, your teacher would yell at you. You're not allowed to use a calculator because you're not always going to have a calculator.
Right.
I have a calculator in my pocket at all times at this point.
Right.
So the question about the role of AI and what that means to both learning and development as a thinking person is going to be very different for my kids and their kids than it will be for me. Mm-hmm. I use AI every single day, in very big ways. And I am I feel like a boomer, and I'm sure I don't use it as well as it can be used, but my kids growing up in this world, they're going to be able to do things with this that are just unbelievable. But I always come back to the fact that when we left the factories, and we're concerned about what are we going to do when machines have replaced people, nobody knew that computer programming was going to be a thing. And we don't know what the job is that is going to replace the things that are going to be replaced by AI.
Right. Well, you can think back to the Industrial Revolution too, right? People are like, these machines, right? Yes. It's like, it's the same thing over and over and over again. It's history repeating itself. So that's what I'm alluding to. And it sounds like
you're 100% right.
Too. Yeah. So, no, I completely agree with you there, man. So just from a fundamental standpoint, right? We've covered some of the basics as it pertains to student housing. Obviously you're raising capital, right? You're bringing in outside investors and whatnot. What would you say are like the biggest concerns of an investor when they come into, like, what are the things that they don't know, right? Because there's a lot of these concerns like stem from lack of knowledge, right? So what are some of the things that they don't know about that, once they understand, once you explain it to them, they get more comfortable with the idea of investing into student housing and into Ivy Capital? So
it's a great question. I think inexperienced investors look at this like buying stock, where it's relatively passive. The idea is you're going to buy this Fortune 100 stock, and there's 1,000 twists and turns, and maybe it'll go up, maybe it'll come down, but you're gambling. In real estate, I don't feel like we gamble. I think that it's a much more active approach to how we can influence the returns. And once you can show them there's a business plan, it's a simple business plan. It's achievable. It's executable. And it's short term. It's 5 years. It's 3 years. We're not talking about trying to understand what's going to happen, in 30 years. It becomes a lot more manageable for their minds, to be able to say, all right, I get it. If you do these 3 things, then I get my return.
Right. Yeah, that's really interesting. And you're right. You're so right. And this is actually one of my biggest gripes with the school of thought that, this is one of my biggest gripes with our hive mentality around investing into public equities in general, right? And Wall Street's done a phenomenal job of positioning themselves as mainstream investments, and everything else is alternative, right? I love how alternative is everything except for Wall Street, right? And then Wall Street's like Main Street, right? And it's like, all right, come on now. This is crazy, but it's great marketing and really tapping into that human psychology, because we hear alternative sounds risky, does it not? Like when I hear alternative investments, it sounds like fair, like
we're just like Bitcoin. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. But you're 100% right. You're not going to the Coca-Cola board meeting, right? And influencing their decision making. No chance in hell. But as an operator, right, when they're investing into one of your properties, there is much more insight, right? And into, I should say, the business plan that you're going to be executing to deliver the results that you're promising to the investor. Right. And whether they want to admit it or not, someone looks at your business and they say, well, I don't know if I want to invest into student housing because I don't really understand it. You don't understand the Coca-Cola or Apple or for sure not Apple, right? You don't understand their business plan. You have no idea what they're doing. You just like to see the little ticker go up, 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 up.
Yeah. Because as you said, great marketing.
Great marketing. Phenomenal.
Yeah.
We need to figure that. I need to I've been reading a lot of books recently on Wall Street. Yeah. The indoctrination of an entire generation is absolutely insane. But it's actually multiple generations, right?
Yes.
Very interesting, man. Very, very interesting. So, but I love your explanation there, which is like, this is influenceable by us. And this is what we're doing to influence the results that we're promising. This isn't just us throwing the dice and saying like, we're hoping that we can execute on this. It's like, no, this is a concrete, repeatable, duplicatable business plan. We've done this before. We're going to do it again. And the results should be expected. Right. We're not promising them, but like these are the expectations.
That's it. And like I said earlier, the levers are finite. There's a few levers to pull. I don't have to have 1,000 levers to pull. Yeah. And that overcomplicates things. And I really do appreciate your explanation earlier, which is like the niche of student housing kind of brings down the number of factors, external factors that can influence negatively or positively, the asset. So I think that it makes a lot of sense to me, Cool, man. Well, look, we're running close-ish up on time here. So I want to, start to wrap up here. And before we go any further, if the folks back at home want to connect with you, learn more about how to invest into some student housing opportunities or just other opportunities with Ivy Capital in general, where can they find you and how can they reach you? Yeah. So our website is www.ivy-cap.com. My email is jeff@ivycap.com. So I'd love to hear from any of your listeners. If they don't agree with anything I said, if they've got other ideas, I would love to hear that too. I love a great conversation. But please, I hope they reach out.
Awesome, man. Yeah. All that's going to be in the description and in the show notes down below. Obviously we don't have a crystal ball, Jeff, but I'm going to put you on the spot here. We're sitting here. It's really early in March of 2026. Still pretty early on in the year. What's in store for us, the remainder of this year here? What are you seeing in the commercial real estate sector and specifically, multifamily and student housing in general? I'm
an optimist at heart. I believe it's going to be a really great year. I think interest rates are going to come down a bit this year, which I think will be good. Our country and most of the markets need more housing. There's a few that are overbuilt, but for the most part, we need housing. And I think that there's going to be some inroads there this year. I think maybe it's going to take a couple of years to actually have impact, but I think you're going to see people starting to build.
Yeah. Well, the thing that what I've been stuck on here is I've seen a few projects that have recently got up off the ground, and anyone that I think is able to put a shovel into the ground this year is going to win big over the next cycle, because you got the whole next cycle to ride this thing up, and so anyone that can find a way to make it happen, I think is gonna really, really win big.
I totally agree. And I'll do a shameless plug. We are just breaking ground on a property in Charleston right now.
Boom.
And extremely excited. The first shovel just went in the ground, and in another 2 years, I think we're gonna have a cash producing product.
Yeah, no, it's really is the best time to build is right now, where there's still a lot of uncertainty, but we do know that we're I think we've already kind of like gotten below we're already kind of on the climb back up. We'll see, obviously, geopolitical issues and whatnot. But yeah, man. So no, I totally agree with you. I think that there's, that we're on the climb back up and obviously geopolitical issues aside, I think that we're, hopefully going to continue to climb back up and it's exciting to hear about the Charleston project and, wishing you a ton of success on that one. Before I let you go though, Jeff, we're going to have you leave the audience with one final investing secret. Take it away. One final investing secret I'm going to say is do something you understand. This is not necessarily a something that you haven't heard before that Warren Buffett doesn't talk about. Yes. But keep things simple. It's not meme coins. It's just do what you know and do what you understand and what you can get your brain around. Because if you can easily get your brain around it, whoever is administering the investment can also get their brain around it, and just keep life simple. That's great, man. No, I love that. And I do think there's a lot of truth in that. I think people like to overcomplicate their investment strategies for sure. Great. Jeff, it's been a pleasure, man. Thanks for stopping by and, wish you all the continued success here in 26 and beyond. Thank you so much. My pleasure. And I appreciate you having me today. Awesome.